All right, hi everybody. Welcome to the Speakeasy, or back to the Politico Speakeasy here at the GlobeSec Forum in Prague. We are going to hopefully get everybody set. We want your full attention for this next interview. My colleague Zoya Sheptavlovich is going to be speaking with our very special next guest. So please give them a round of applause as we welcome them to the stage. Thank you.
Good morning, folks, and thank you for joining us at the day 2 of Politico Speakeasy here at this year's GlobeSec Forum. I'm Zoya Sheptavlovich. I'm Politico's chief EU correspondent and also the host of the Brussels Playbook podcast. Subscribe and like. And joining me on stage today, we have someone very special who is here direct from Kyiv. It is Katarína Mathernová, the ambassador of the European Union to Ukraine. And we're going to be discussing what's happening on the ground in the country right now and what's going to happen in this war. Ambassador, I would like to start by asking you, is there a moment or an experience or a conversation that you've had since you went to Ukraine that has really stuck with you?
Ooh, so many moments. Well, the one that really stuck with me is meeting and befriending Romchik. Romchik is an 11-year-old boy. In 2022, in July, he was in Vinica with his mom, and the Russians launched 2 ballistic missiles against a local hospital. 27 people died, including his mom, in front of his eyes. He was 7 at that point. He crawled out, 49% degree burns on his body. He was medevaced to Germany, and now, 32 operations later, he learned German and English while in Germany, and he's a lovely boy who plays the piano, plays accordion, does ballroom dancing, and is full of life. And that's, you know, we talk about resilience. This is it. This is what you see among Ukrainians.
It's a shocking kind of view of what's happening on the ground, because sometimes it can feel far away for us when we're safe in Brussels. In the southern countries of the European Union, it can feel far away, but that is a shocking example of what is happening on the ground. Speaking of
and
that...
And inspiring at the same time.
Inspiring as well, absolutely. What was this winter like in Ukraine?
Brutal. You know, I don't think I've been in minus 26 before, but what was particularly difficult is Russians systematically ruined the sources of both electricity and heat. There are 3 big thermal power plants around Kiev. All 3 were hit by the end of the winter, but in early February, with 5 ballistic missiles, they knocked out the CHP number 4 on the left bank of the river. And you would go around Kiev and you would see these tents, whether from Red Cross or from the rescue services of Ukraine. There were over 1,000 tents where people would come and recharge their body batteries, their electronic batteries, get some tea. Kids were doing homework there. People were freezing in their own apartments. And what was sad is how little of it was known, because, you know, Ukraine fell off the main stories in the media, and this winter Kyiv was really a frontline city. So people from the east didn't want to move back to Kyiv anymore because it was so difficult to survive. Plus, you not only didn't have heat, but you had electricity 2 or 3 hours a day. So it was difficult.
One of my colleagues zoomed into a call on a work meeting. She lives in Kyiv, and you could see behind her ice on the inside of her apartment windows just forming on the glass. And that was just normal every day for her. Yeah. We met in February briefly in Kyiv. At that time, things on the ground felt grim. I mean, there was a sense of exhaustion cold, tired, for good reason. It feels like things have turned a little bit. There is a sense that Ukraine has momentum now. Ukraine is taking back territory. It is able to reach Moscow. It's able to reach Russian airports. There has been a shift in that narrative. Is that being felt in the way that people are feeling in Kiev? Is there more optimism now?
Well, mainly optimism came from the weather changing and Kiev blooming, and it's the famous chestnut city, and you have the lilac everywhere. So yes, there is a feeling that we survived the winter and we didn't fall. I mean, there was definitely in March, you had a sense of, okay, we did it. And now I think there is indeed, while the war with Iran was only bad news for Ukraine because you used up the Patriot interceptors, you know, a lot quicker than what Ukraine even got over 4 years. And the oil price rising was a boon for Putin. But I think what it helped was to demonstrate the capabilities that Ukrainians have. We all knew it, certainly who is there and who follows Ukraine, but I think now it's a worldwide, global acknowledgement of their really superior innovation and capacity. And wherever, you know, we, the allies, didn't provide the kit, Ukrainians invented it themselves. So their deep strike capabilities are now very impressive, as you mentioned. So yes, there is a renewed sense of, okay, we can do it, but the exhaustion is there. The war has been going on for over 4 years, and it's, you know, how long can you sustain this level of effort, this level of suffering, this level of deprivation? Because the more Putin is not winning on the battlefield, the more he terrorizes civilian population. Now we had 24 hours, a few weeks ago we had 24 hours with 1,500 drones and 56 missiles launched against Ukraine in 24-hour period. So, you know, it kills people, it destroys lives, houses, enterprises, hospitals, you know, completely indiscriminately. So that's difficult to sustain.
How do you take the message to somewhere like Spain, like Italy, somewhere far away from the front line, where you've got this kind of sense of, well, yes, defense is important, but it's not that important. We have to pay pensions, we have to do this, we have to do that. How do you take the message that, considering that capability that the Russians now have, because in the same way that the Ukrainians have been learning from the war, the Russians have been learning from the war, they can launch 1,500 drones within that short space of time. If those drones are directed at a Baltic country, as we've seen recently, that impact would be enormous and devastating. But it's hard to convey the need to increase defense spending to some of the countries that are further from that battlefield. Why should the French decide, yes, we need to increase defense spending so much? Why should Italy? What can we tell people in those countries?
For me, it's very easy. Look at the counterfactual. Look at the cost of, because it's about integrating Ukraine, it's about doing the European defense together with Ukraine, because the counterfactual is all those capabilities not being with us is a lot scarier, because this is an exceptional nation historically, and we knew very, very little before 2022. Still, people don't really know Ukrainian history, but this is a historically very particular nation of self-reliance, little bit of rebellion, freedom-loving from their Cossack roots and etc. And I think it's, for a European, it's indispensable to be together with Ukraine. The European Union would be stronger, safer, and more prosperous with Ukraine in it. And this is the message. Imagine the counterfactual. Imagine they're not with us, but against us.
We speak about Ukraine's EU accession path. There are a lot of ideas floating around right now. I think there was a lot of appetite from the EU itself, from the European Commission, to get Ukraine into the club. But now we're seeing some pushback from certain member countries. We're seeing ideas floating around, reverse membership, stepped accession, etc., etc. What is the message that Ukraine should take away from all of these ideas, where we're moving away from this concept of full membership ASAP and towards, well, maybe you can sit in the room, maybe you can have a commissioner and an MEP, but you can't vote?
Well, what I hope is that Ukrainians are not going to take away, like, okay, you don't want us, let us move into a different model, because again, then we may enter territory where you would have a very large, very capable country,
Extremely
with a lot
well
of
armed.
determined people and very well armed. That would not be with us. So I think it's very good to have various creative ideas. I think it's important to speak with the Ukrainians very openly and clearly and say, yes, there are still these and these reforms that need to happen, but we are talking about full membership, which I think is the only landing zone going forward.
On the reforms, Ukraine has been implementing reforms at a very rapid pace, but things have slowed down a little recently. When I was there in February, I was speaking to some lawmakers who were saying that one of the issues was just getting things through the Rada was quite difficult. Is there a path forward? Can Ukraine sustain the momentum that it had, particularly earlier in the war, of ramming through those reforms?
I think the momentum we had at the beginning of the war is not sustainable over a long period of time. I mean, they were really 22, 23, 24 were Rada was a lawmaking machine working at a speed that was impressive, and therefore I was saying, guys, don't think this is going to last forever. We have a slowdown now. We had a slowdown now, but let's remember, next month starts the 8th year of this convocation of the Rada. This month, the president started his 8th year in office. That's 2 mandates in one. You cannot have elections because of the war, because of the martial law. And so I'm not sure that we would find easily any other parliament in the world that would sustain the same level of activity over essentially 2 mandates without a natural process of re-election, etc. So I'm a little more patient with them than some people maybe. Rada is now functioning again, but the pace we saw in 2022, 23, a country fighting an existential fight and reforming is unprecedented. There is no country in the world you can show me with this level of military activity and war and carrying out reforms. So they are writing their own playbook. This never has been written before. So to say that they are now slowing down, yes. I mean, it's a natural cycle. I think that the amount of reforms they have carried out is such that there are a few things they need to finalize, but I think they are quite comparable to any of the other countries that are trying to get into the EU in terms of the overall volume of reforms and transformation that has taken place in the country.
There have been a few high-profile instances of the anti-corruption agencies in Ukraine essentially filing charges, arresting some very high-profile people in the Zelensky administration, with Andrei Yermak the most recent, most high-profile example. What would you say to, so I've been speaking to people in Brussels, and there's 2 schools of thought on that. One school of thought is, oh, well, Ukraine is corrupt. This is great evidence of why Ukraine shouldn't be in the EU. Second school of thought is actually that's evidence that the anti-corruption institutions are working. What would you say to the people who are in that first camp?
That it would be good to study and understand the situation a little more, because you would not find that view among people who have been observing and watching reforms and understand what it takes to do reforms in the first camp. I mean, look, we are under martial law, in war, and number 2 person in the country was behind bars and was let out on bail and is being investigated. That tells me that the system is working and the anti-corruption institutions are working and are getting the support both from the population and from the partners, and they are allowed to work. Because, this narrative, they're so corrupt, they're practically a failed state, is nonsense. Is there corruption in Ukraine? Absolutely. But the measure whether they can deal with it is how you address corruption when it occurs. And I think the institutions, the current situation is proving that.
We had Viktor Orbán in Hungary acting as a major spoiler for Ukraine over the past 4 years. We know he was very close to the Kremlin. We know that his foreign minister was so close to the Kremlin, he had them on speed dial. Now Viktor Orbán is gone. Do you see an opportunity for Ukraine that didn't exist before, or were there countries that were using Orbán as kind of the face of the anti-Ukraine camp, but were secretly quite happy with what he was doing?
Both are true. I think there is an opportunity in a new momentum that has been created by the change of government in Hungary, but it's very clear that there were others hiding behind him. So it's not as before we were telling them, sure, we can open all clusters, let's go the informal way, and then in one go things will be opened formally, the negotiations. That's clearly not going to happen. So yes, I think there have been others who didn't need to be vocal before, but I trust that the strategic direction of the EU needing enlargement will actually prevail.
There's been a conversation here at Politico Speakeasy among several of the panelists in the past day or two about whether the EU needs to engage with the Kremlin, whether there needs to be someone who's sent to speak with Putin. Do you think that is indeed what should happen? Do we need a Putin whisperer, so to speak? And if so, who might that be?
Well, on the who might that be is always a tricky question when you need to represent not only the 27, but also the whole coalition of the willing. So I think that will be the element that will take time to figure out. I think Europe needs to be in the discussions because the result of the war and how it ends will impact every single European in a profound way. So I think it's in our innate interest to be part of the discussions. Neither two big powers wanted Europe at the table, so I think we need to find a way how to be part of the discussion, because it's about future European security. We all know and discuss also at GlobSec how the old world order no longer applies, and just the previous speaker talked about that. And so I think it's very much in European interest to find a way how to be an important, strong voice in the way this war ends.
Donald Trump is in the White House. He's the one who's frequently been dictating the terms of the negotiation over the peace. How does Europe convince Donald Trump that it is a player and that he should take us seriously?
Well, for example, the entire pressure on Putin that he now feels and behaves accordingly, including with the parade on the 9th, is because of the pressure that Ukrainians are putting on him through the deep strikes and destruction of important logistics and military centers. And Europe is the one that backs it financially, militarily, politically. So I think we are very much part of the pressure with the sanctions, etc. And I think actions should speak more than words.
Well, that's a great place to end. Katarína, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been fascinating. Your insights have been really, really something for us all to think about. Thanks to all of you who've joined us today in Prague, and thanks for those who are tuning in online via our live stream. My colleague Matthew Waffle will introduce the next session. Please welcome him to the stage.